Yo, Citizen Youth, what's going on? You guys having a good night so far? Make some noise again, make some noise again. Yeah, I like it. Hey, well, if you don't know my name is Dom, and I say this a lot, but I mean it. I have the privilege and the honor of serving here at Citizen Youth, and man, I just love being a part of this ministry. I love everything we get to do, and to be honest with you, I've been a part of this ministry almost my whole life, and there's something so special about Citizen Youth right now. I believe that God is here, but most importantly, I believe that as students, y'all are chasing after Jesus. I love being a part of this group. I love hanging out with you guys. There's something special about this group of students, and I want you to know that. I want you to believe that. And live in it, because it's real. What you have here is special. The leaders that you have here are special. And I love Citizen Youth. Make some noise if you love Citizen Youth. I love it. Hey, well, if you're new or you haven't been here the past few weeks, we're in a series called To the One Who. And basically, what we're doing in this series is we're specifically talking to the one who struggles with blank, to the one who is fearful, or to the one who struggles with addiction, to the one who doubts. Last week, we had a student leader speak. Aiden Woodward. Aiden, stand up real quick. Stand up, please. Come on, stand up. Hey, no, stay standing, please. Hey, what you did last week was absolutely amazing. I could have never done that as an 18-year-old, 17-year-old student. To get up here, guys, I want you to realize this. To get up here and to speak to this amount of people, as well as he did, at the age that he did, is unbelievable. And especially just speaking to your peers makes it 10 times harder. You go to school with these people, you know these people. And so I want to tell you seriously, you did such an amazing job. We love you. You killed it. Well, youth, I've got a question for you tonight. I love starting sermons off with questions. I believe that they get the gears going a little bit. But I want to ask you a question. And I want you to ask yourself this question, and I want you to internalize this question. Who are you? Who are you? I remember being a high school student. All 4 years of my high school career, I felt like I didn't know who I was. I would go from group to group, friend group to friend group, and I would put on a front with every single friend group that I hung out with. If I hung out with the football guys, then I'd try to be a little more sporty, right? A little more jockey. If I hung out with the nerds or not the nerds, if I hung out with the smart people, or just a different group of people, then I would try to switch up my personality and how I talked or just who I was in general. And honestly, I thought that was the way to go. I did it all throughout high school, and that was my mindset. But what I didn't realize in the moment was how tiring this was, how hard it was for me, how anxious it made me. And honestly, what I was trying to do was I was trying to fit in with these groups. But in reality, I realized that I actually didn't fit in with any of them. And I didn't fit in with them because I tried to mold and shape myself in each of these groups I hung out with. And so while I was doing this, it was affecting me, and it was hurting me. It was making me upset. And to be honest with you, to be real with you, we're getting real quick again, but it kind of had me a little depressed in seasons. When I would have to go into different groups and different people and act a certain type of way, I felt this pressure being a high school student. Can I ask you a question tonight? Have you ever been there? Right? Have you ever felt like you had to be a specific person in a certain group of people? You had to look a certain way with a certain group of people. You had to act a certain way with those people, but you talk or you participate in things a different way when you're with different people. Have you ever been there? Is my question to you. Well, I want to tell you, I want to challenge you tonight that that's not the weight that we're meant to carry. We're not supposed to bend and fold to what society tells us to do. We're not supposed to act like a different group of people or to place ourselves with other people, hoping that we can be like them. I love what 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7 says. It says this: But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Let's read the second part of that verse again. It says this: the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Can I tell you, in middle school and in high school, you are your own biggest critic. You are your own biggest critic. What you say about you is the exact opposite of what the creator of the universe says about you. It is the exact opposite of how God has appointed you, selected you, and brought you up. And I want you to live in that and know that tonight, student. Luke chapter 12, verses 6 through 7 says this: are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. You are worth more than many sparrows. Let me tell you that if God says that about me, then I can stand confident and secure in who I am. I can stand up tall. I can know who I am and who I want to be because I know the Creator has selected me and chose me for where I'm at. Tonight I want to title this message, To the One Who Doesn't Think They're Enough. To the one who doesn't think they're enough. Have you ever asked yourself the question, what does God say about me? Sometimes especially in high school, I found myself wondering that same question. I'm living a life in high school and I don't know if it's right or wrong. I really don't know what I'm doing, especially in high school. But I ask myself this question a lot. What does God say about me? Why am I here? Why has God placed me on this earth for a time like this? What does he say about me? And I asked myself this question, but sometimes I couldn't stop myself thinking, if God only knew. If God only knew what I did last night, if God only knew who I talked to, if God only knew what I'm doing, if God only knew what they said about me, if God only knew what I thought about me, if God only knew. But can I tell you, God knows and he still chooses you. God knows and still chooses you. Tonight I want to tell you 3 things that God says about you. 3 things that I believe God says about you. Number 1 is God says you are set apart. God says you are set apart. Jeremiah 1:5 says this: before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Student, if you want to tonight, I'd encourage you to take a picture of this. I wake up every day and I read this exact verse to myself. I have such a hard time, and I forgot to preface this earlier in the message, but I believe that this message tonight is for me as well, just as much as it is for you, because this is exactly what I struggle with. But Jeremiah 1:5, I try to keep in my back pocket every single day because I want to believe and know, I do believe, but I want to be reminded every day that God has specifically and uniquely set me apart. We have to wake up every day knowing this and believing this passage. But what becomes so hard at times, student, is that we're allowing surface words that are spoken over our lives to keep us from knowing and living in what God said. We're allowing these surface words, these words that other humans, other people who were created in his image, we're letting these surface words affect our lives. but they have no match and no power compared to what God says about us. Well, you may say, oh, well, I know me better than anyone. This is my body. I know everything about it. No, his or her opinion is way more important. It's way more important about what God says. It's way more important about what I think. His or her opinion is way more important. But can I encourage you tonight? Nothing and no one have authority over what God says. And when we believe that and we actually step into that, because it's nice, it's words on a screen. But when we actually understand that and take that in and live in that, I'm telling you right now, it will transform your life. Nothing and no one have authority over what the creator of the universe says about you. Believe that tonight, student, if you don't believe anything else. And what I love is he says that you are set apart. That he has a unique plan and purpose for every single one of your lives. Get this. God has given you everything you need to do everything he has called you to do. God has given you, he's given you everything you need for you to do what he has called you to do. You think that God has placed you on this earth without a purpose, without things that can help you excel in what he's called you to do? You think that he's planted you here and not given you the gifts, the fruits that you will use to be successful? No. Why would God do that? No, God has uniquely placed you here. But what I love is that he's given us everything we need to be successful. You're not here by accident. You're not here just to be here. But God has uniquely put you here, and he's given you everything you need for success. He's given you everything you need for success. Jeremiah 29:11. This is God speaking to the nation of Israel. He says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." Student, you are thought of, you are loved, and you are sought after. You are set apart. The second point, the second thing that God says about us is God says, nothing will shake you. Nothing will shake you. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 27 says this. This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things will remain. Since we are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping him with holy fear and awe. For our God is a devouring fire. Has anybody ever used a salt shaker before? Right? You know, you shake it to get the salt out. But what I believe in, I want you to picture this with me for a moment, because this is exactly what I thought when I thought of this. But for some reason, I picture society. I picture society shaking our next generation, shaking you, shaking me. I like to think I'm pretty young, but shaking you and trying to mold you and shake and shake and shake until you come out the way they want you to, right? Society tells us, hey, you have to look like her. Mm-mm. Hey, you have to be as funny as him. No, you don't. Hey, you have to be as smart as them. No. Don't listen to what society says, because they're going to shake you and shake you and shake you until you start spinning around and fall over. No. I'm telling you, that's not the way to go. And what I love about this is, like we read earlier, you are part of a kingdom that is unshakable. And that makes you unshakable, right? You are part of a kingdom. We read it. Let's read it again. I want to read it again. This wasn't planned, but I'm reading it again. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 27. Read it with me and own it and live it this time. This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed. All of creation, all of society will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things, God's kingdom, will remain. Since we are receiving a kingdom, since you are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping him with holy fear and awe. For our God is a devouring fire. Let me say it again. You are part of an unshakable kingdom, and that makes you unshakable. I want to put the definition of unshakable on the screen. It says this: so strong that you cannot be destroyed or altered, unable to be changed. Unable to be changed. Student, you can't let society change you, right? Let's be unshakable. Whenever you think a bad thought about yourself, whenever you feel a certain type of way, whenever someone said something to you that hurt your feelings or made you not feel good enough, whenever, this happens to me, whenever you look in the mirror and you say, I don't like what I see, tell yourself, keep that word in your mind. I am unshakable because I am part of an unshakable kingdom. You are unshakable. Quit believing the lies of the enemy. They do not define you. Every negative thought you have in your head, every word or phrase from a friend, from your mom, from your dad, for somebody who's speaking negativity over your life, that's the enemy. Don't believe it. That's not what God says about you. Focus on what God gave you and how he made you. That's how you're going to go. Focus on what God gave you and how he made you. Number 3 says this. God says he has uniquely designed you. God says he has uniquely designed you. Psalm chapter 139 verses 15 through 16 say this: my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. I love this. God knew us before we were formed. Before we were even made, God had a plan for us, a purpose for us, and a calling for us. You were divinely created. This doesn't make sense to me, it might not make sense to you, but you were divinely created before you were even formed. There's a reason why you are who you are. There's a reason. Why does it matter what someone says about you? Why does it matter what they say if they were not the one who uniquely designed you? Why should it matter? I wrote this and it, while I was writing it, it completely changed my perspective. But I want you to listen to this. I'm going to say this, and I want it to sink in. It's about to go on the screen. It says this: you do not have the authority to talk bad about yourself if you weren't the one who created yourself. Isn't that good? You do not have the authority to talk bad about yourself. Oh, I'm getting emotional. If you are not the one who designed yourself, you have no authority to say, I don't like me. I don't like what I look like. I don't like me because of what she said. I'm not good enough because of what he said. No. You have no authority to say that because you did not design you. In fact, the creator of the universe designed you. Specifically, just the way you are. You are you for a reason. You are unique. You are beautiful. You are kind. You are loving. You are compassionate. You are caring. You're funny. You are you for a reason. And I feel like especially today, I still struggle with this, but I feel like high schoolers and middle schoolers have to hear this. Because that, honestly, was my biggest fault in high school. Like I said, I didn't know who I was. You care too much about what other people think. Galatians 1:10 says, Galatians 1:10 says, for am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. You're always anxious or afraid. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. You call yourself ugly? No. Genesis 1:27 says, God has created you in his own image. You say you have no purpose? Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, for which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Can I tell you, what you say and what God says are two completely different things. They're on two completely different wavelengths. And I need you to believe that tonight, student. He's speaking in your life, and he wants nothing but the best for you. But it's so hard to hear him and listen when we're thinking the worst of us, when we're thinking the worst about us. I get it. We're not perfect people. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But I want you to know this, student, tonight. God specializes in using people who know they need him. God specializes in using people who know they need him. Yes, God, I know I'm not good enough. I know I'm not good enough. But in you, I know I'm good enough. I know that you meet me where I am. God, you meet me where I need you most, Jesus. You lift me up when I'm down, God. And I know that I'm enough because you are enough. I know who I am because I know whose I am. Come on. Right? Yeah, you can come to that. He specializes in using people who know they need him. Do you know that you need him tonight? I need him. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this message, in high school, I struggled being secure with who I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who God wanted me to be. But like I said, I jumped around with different friend groups a lot, and I found myself lost in it all. Hurt, confused, anxious, lost because I didn't know who I was. I wasn't confident in the me that God had called me to be. And I'll never forget, 2019, we went to camp, youth camp here. Not in this building, but it was youth camp. And 2019, we were at UNM, and there was a sermon that was preached. And the sermon was called, Take Off Your Mask. It's called Take Off Your Mask. And the whole idea of this sermon was, take off your mask. Quit being not you in certain situations. Quit being different. Quit putting on a mask. Quit putting on a face with different people. Quit trying to be someone you're not, because at the end of the day, that's going to make things a lot worse than better. And I sat in that sermon, and I needed to hear it, first of all. But it kind of changed my perspective. I began to try to be a little more every single day. It doesn't happen overnight, but every single day I tried to be a little more authentically me, right? I started finding one steady friend group that I knew would push me, but that I also knew loved Jesus, because that's important. But I also was not afraid to be myself. That night I put my foot down and I said, God, I don't know what my life looks like after high school, but I'm making a declaration tonight that I'm not going to be somebody else. That I'm not, although I think there'll always be a little bit of insecurity with everybody. Everyone struggles with it. but I'm not gonna let the insecurity run my life. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna step back because I know who I am. I'm confident. I can stand up here and tell you today, I'm confident in who I am because I know Jesus. I'm not perfect. I'm not this ball of confidence. I'm insecure. But I don't let it run my life. I don't. And I want to challenge you tonight, student, to do the same. I began to ask myself the question after that night. I asked myself, who are you? Who do you want to be? Who are you? And like I said, day by day, I began to get in the Word. I began to be myself. My whole life changed. I was more confident. I was happier. I was healthier. I had a better mindset. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I wasn't depressed. Yes, I'm human and I have those emotions, but I didn't allow myself to live in those emotions. And after I asked myself that question, I would look myself in the mirror and I'd say, you were enough. There were days where I didn't believe it. There were days when I didn't want to do it. But I knew that I was enough because I know Jesus is enough. And tonight, we're going to do something a little different here. But I want to invite all the leaders to the front. And band can come up as well. But I always remember, and not all of them need to come, but just leaders who are comfortable with praying with students. But I always remember, student, don't be taken back by this. This is good. But I always remember some of the hardest hitting nights for me as a student. And I promise you, I put on the cool guy. I was one of those guys. I was too cool to go talk to a leader, I promise. But when I did it, it was almost as a weight was lifted off my shoulder. Because I got to tell someone who I look up to, someone who I know cares about me, what I'm struggling with. And getting that off of your chest and just telling someone does a world of difference. So don't think this is weird. If you don't feel like you need to speak with a leader and ask for prayer, then don't do it. But if you feel like you need prayer tonight, I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you to go up here and speak with a leader. Ask for prayer. Because those nights for me were some of my favorite nights, but also not favorite nights, because they hit home. And I knew that someone was thinking about me, praying about me, and believing in me. So we're going to sing one more song of worship. I'll come up here and pray us out after this, but the band's going to come up and sing, and y'all can stand up. And when we're willing to, come pray with a leader.